Good afternoon. Welcome to Educational Action Research Module 1. My name is Matthew Poliak, and this is my submission. I was instructed to start with some personal information, so I'll start with what I think is most important about me, and that's not my profession, but who I am. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and that is what is most important to me. That's why I work, is so that I can help take care of my family. If I didn't have them, I would have quit years ago. So my religion is an important part of my life, and I'm heavily involved in my church and church activities. I was just Sunday, in fact, I was just called to be on the High Council for our stake. So I'm looking forward to some new experiences there and some changes in what I've been doing. Professionally, I'm a physics teacher. This is not my lab. None of these photos are of me. I just pulled them off the internet. I don't keep large collections of photos of myself or anything, but that's just me. But this is representative of what the kind of things that I do. I'm a physics teacher at a high school. During the summer, I teach driver education. I do some other things. I also work with the drama program. I'm the tech guy. I help build sets and scenery and do some of the background sorts of stuff for them as well. Now, personal just hobbies and interests. I have a diverse range of things. I'm not interested in sports. That's not my thing. I do all kinds of other things. In the past, I worked in a circus. I learned how to juggle and fly on a trapeze, and I was a gymnast for years, but that seems like a lifetime ago now, back when I was much younger. In more recent times, I've spent my days working on home improvement sorts of things, building houses, putting on new roofs, new windows, siding, doors, big stuff, little stuff, rewiring my house, that sort of thing. Doing some minor concrete work, building a deck, that sort of thing. When my wife got sick about 8 years ago, I found that I needed to do some things around the house that were quiet, and so I began to develop an interest in artwork, something that I could do in the basement after she went to bed. For the 3 hours before I went to bed, and I started doing artwork. I worked with miniatures. I worked with paper mache. I started making jewelry. I've made paper mache dragon heads. Most recently, again, none of these are actual pictures of me, but they're representative of the kinds of things that I've done. I found on YouTube a video of a fellow who took brass nuts and bolts and using a hammer and a blowtorch and some time and patience turned it into a beautiful wasp, and I decided I was going to make a dragonfly, and I was pretty proud of that. I actually made 2 pieces, a dragonfly and a butterfly. Neither is outstanding, but I'm proud of them. Nevertheless, let's get to the main event, and that's this. Why are we here? This is all about action research, and what is action research? Well, I didn't really know. I perhaps heard the term before, but never really paid much attention to it. So I was very pleased when I ran across this particular image, this diagram that goes through some of the steps or the process of action research to help look at how it's done. And what it came down to is me understanding how I've believed that I've sort of, at least in a way, implemented these sorts of processes in the past. I'll give you an example. Years and years ago, I had started teaching physics, and when I started teaching physics, I very quickly ran into a problem where my students had a great deal of difficulty doing the calculations for the series and parallel circuits. The sets of equations are a little bit cumbersome, and it's often difficult to answer a question because it requires the use of several different equations in the right order in order to get from what we know to what it is we're trying to find. And the process is a bit of a challenge. It's a bit onerous. So for years, my students struggled with this, and I struggled to try to teach it in a better way, because I realized that this was not ideal. So many of them were getting lost, getting frustrated, just really struggling with this, and I looked for ways to help them. So I went online, I asked around. I asked every time I got with other physics teachers, I always asked about their approaches and what they do. And most of them had similar ideas to how I was already doing it. So I wasn't seeing a lot. But one day I managed to not accidentally, I was deliberately searching, and I found a technique that I thought might be useful. So that year, when we got to that section, I introduced a new approach to solving these sorts of problems, which we call the grid. And the grid allows the students to lay out a format where we can input the information that they already have, and it sort of systematically walks them through step by step what to do next. It has improved their success in this particular area significantly. So without really realizing what I was doing, I think I was getting at the heart of what action research here is. I had identified a problem, and I researched, I went to try to find a way to solve that problem. I developed a plan of that. I found something that I thought, hey, this might do it. Let me try it. And then I implemented that, and I began looking at the results once I had results. For me, in this particular case, the results were obviously noticeably better than before. It was so stark, I mean, scores on the calculation portions like almost double what they had been in the past. All of their understanding questions didn't change much, but the actual ability to do the calculations was significantly improved with this new technique, that I didn't need to do any fancy statistical analysis to find that I found a 4% improvement. No, this was a significant improvement, 30, 40, 50% improvement right off the bat, or in some cases, in at least one class, the scores were nearly twice as much for that particular aspect. It was obviously better. And that analysis led me to the conclusion, of course, that this was a better way to do it, and I've been doing it that way ever since. Now, there's been minor adjustments since then. I've tried to streamline things. I've tried to maybe teach it in a slightly different way, or present it in with diagrams and stories rather than just the numbers. So I've continued to try to refine that over the years, but ultimately it was the grid that made the big difference. And I implemented that informed change and have seen that my students do better, and I feel like I'm a better teacher. And that, I think, is the crux of what action research is really supposed to be about. Now, there are 4 common approaches to action research. Individual teachers doing like what I did, or something similar, trying a new presentation, a new way, a new technique. Let's do this particular assignment as an oral presentation rather than a written report, for example. Or you may have collaborative cohorts. Right now, for example, in my district, we have science departments that frequently get together and talk about different ways of doing things. And if the science department is talking about perhaps finding ways to incorporate kinesthetic movements into their lessons, or hand motions to help increase retention rates. When I teach now, for example, the difference between transverse waves and longitudinal waves. Every time I say the word transverse, I do this with my hands. And every time I say longitudinal, I do this with my hands. And I encourage my students, at least the first few times that I do it, to do it with me. Do transverse, do longitudinal. And that physical thing in an attempt to try to improve retention. We still have to look at the data and see if it's making any difference. But that's the kind of thing that could be done. The school-wide, our school has implemented a freshman academy, so that all freshman teachers in the school are meeting together to try to talk about techniques that we can use as a group. And as a district, our entire district, again, I'm not talking specifically about science teachers, but all of the science teachers in our 4 high school district have all begun to try to use, just in the last couple of years, they've been pushing this idea of an inquiry approach, where rather than us giving data or information, that we're getting students to try to discover it on our own. We were interrupted by COVID. We're going to try again this year and see if we can see a change or an improvement in student outcomes as a result. That is a kind of action research as I understand it. Now, are there differences between action research and traditional research? There are. Traditional research tends to be more theoretical, whereas action research tends to be more practical, very hands-on. Traditional research tends to have a more rigorous statistical analysis, whereas action research does not require that. It tends to be more qualitative in nature. Of course, data is important. It's often very helpful to look at that data and see if you see improvements. Some cases it's obvious, other cases it may not be, and you may have to really look at it. But we generally don't have to go through the same kinds of statistical analysis that's done in other sorts of research. Traditional research has randomized representative samples, whereas we work with the students that are already assigned to us. Of course, when you're talking about action research, you're talking about something that is essentially embedded within the regular classwork that you're already doing. Okay. Now, there are some common problems, of course. Teachers may not be comfortable with this idea. They may not have access to the information. They may not have the know-how to conduct research on their own. They may not realize that they're already doing a kind of research. They may just feel like they're just experimenting, that they're just trying things out. They may not understand the implications of their own findings, and sometimes talking with somebody else or collaborating with them might help them to discover that or figure that out. And they may feel a little uncomfortable just simply experimenting with their students. The idea of hey, I've done it this way, I know how to do it this way, I've got consistent results this way. They may not be the results that I want, but if I try it a different way, it might actually be worse. They might learn less. And the idea of being afraid of failure may make teachers shy away from trying something new. It certainly would make me uncomfortable to try something that I thought, I don't know. I think my approach right now maybe isn't perfect, but I'm afraid to mess with it. So those sorts of concerns may be legitimate. How could action research improve my teaching? Well, action research provides the promise of progress. I read that phrase in one of the reading assignments, and I was impressed by that. That sounds like a good thing. We're looking for ways to improve, and if this can work, if this can be helpful, then we ought to be trying it. There it is. The rest of it is course learning outcomes, and you can read through that on the screen on your own. You don't need me to read that to you. There it is. I appreciate your time, and I hope this has been successful. I have never successfully used this Screencast or Screencastify program before, so I hope this worked.